All right, so welcome back. And if you've just joined us, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA. Our focus this morning is on telecoms firms and exorbitant data charges.
We will know what we will have the
Alice and the family office on Good Morning Nigeria, Jide Ojo. Jide, pleasure to have you around.
Thanks for having me. Happy Friday.
Same to you.
All right, we also have joining us from our Lagos Network Center, Benga Adebayo. He's the chairman, Association of Licensed Telecommunications Operators of Nigeria, ALTON. It's good to have you join us on the program this morning.
Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, Abuja. Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, Abuja.
All right, and also joining us right there, you can see him from Lagos, is Prince Azubike. He is a telecoms finance expert. Good morning, Prince Azubike. Thank you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, and good morning to Nigerians. Good morning.
All right, let's begin.
I think we also have to indicate, Rhoda, that we had invited the NCC, which is the Nigerian Communications Commission, the regulator of the telecom subsector, to this conversation, but they haven't shown up. We hope that they'll show up before we wrap up this segment.
All right, let's begin this discussion with Bayero Agabi, who's the president for Cyber Awareness and Development and also the vice president of the Internet Group. Bayero Agabi, how, in today's world that we find ourselves now, how important is the internet to the average human being daily?
Well, the internet has become the oxygen of life. It has become the oxygen of business. It has become the pathway to development, innovation, and creativity. It is estimated that in another 10 years, any business that is not on the internet will fizzle out. No matter the kind of business that you do, whether you're a lawyer, medicine, broadcaster, anything, you have to be on the internet, because as we have it, even in Africa today, about 53%, are already on the internet, and then the remaining about 25% not reached. They are reached, but those are people who don't want to be on the internet. We have to find a way to get them on the internet. And then the remaining percentage, the internet has not reached them yet, because by NCC figures, we have about over 150 million, phones, that have given us that widespread, but not all of them are internet ready. But you see the importance of internet. The internet is the engine of life today.
Well, accessing the internet and therefore being able to breathe either as a human being in your daily communication or as a business entity is the subject matter where we're talking about today, namely the high cost of data by service providers, and we know who they are. It's MTN, Airtel, Globalcom, and Etisalat, or Nine Mobile, that they're called it. What has been your experience with data usage and cost?
Well, in terms of personal experience, well, it's not been, a wow kind of experience. It's not scientific kind of, let me use that kind of word, if it's allowed, You buy, I don't want to put it in gigs and bytes, and let's be practical about it. You buy from a certain network with 6,000 naira, they tell you it's going to take you for 1 month, and you just put your phone down without even using it. Over the night, the thing is gone. And there are so many funny experiences of that nature, and we have tried to find out why. And I'm quite happy that ALTON president, a very good friend, Mr. Adebayo, is right there. So he is their, is their president of all the operators. So he will be able to explain from the operator's perspective, and then I will speak from some technical areas, and then some area in terms of coverage and all of that, and efficiency.
Jide, what has been your experience? You are a big data user.
Well, I mean, like Doc said, you know, internet has become our oxygen now, so much so that no matter your business, if you are not on the internet, you are more or less archaic. You are more or less like antediluvian. My experience has not been any different from that of even the minister, who even have to complain. If a minister of communication will complain that even his own data just gets evacuated overnight, no matter how much you charge. I mean, it's completely rip-off, to say the least. Completely, it's a scam. And it has gone for so long. We are 18 years into this telecommunication. I believe mobile telecom. I recall that it started 2001.
That's true.
Now, 18 years down the line, are we getting value for money? The answer is capital no. Capital no, because these people has become an oligarchy who believes that because they are just 4 or 5, whatever decisions they take amongst themselves is what Nigerians will have to live with. And because it has become an inelastic demand in such a way that they know that about 116 million Nigerians live on the internet. So it's not like you either take it or leave it. So if you don't want to recharge your modem, then you can as well go to market squares and be doing town crier for people to know the kind of business. So you find out that a lot of resources of people are spent on internet connectivity. At the end of the day, you have even high drop of internet. Sometimes you log on in 5 seconds, less than 5 minutes, you are off again. You have to keep logging in as if something is just stripping off the whole thing. I don't know. I found that I have tried to reason. Is it still because of the state of our infrastructure?
Yes, absolutely.
I really don't know. Because you find that, I mean, it shouldn't be an excuse 18 years down the line. They knew the market they were coming into. And for God's sake, if you look at the end of the year account of many of these it's in billions. They are making a kill out of Nigerians. I've been to other countries. I never see where they charge as high as Nigeria for internet usage. When you should ordinarily encourage people to use it, because the more the merrier. The more people you have on the network, the more money you make. But here you are. You charge I mean, for my own telecommunication, on the average in a month, I recharge for 4,000. I mean 3,000, 4,000 for 4 gig. At the end of the day, whether you use or not, all you just know is that maybe after a week or two, you just want to log on, and then the thing is like
0 megabytes.
So it's like it gets evacuated. And then there is one that is doing promo recently. And I went to find out from their company. They said buy for 1,500 for 6 gig. And I said, that's a very good deal. Let me go and recharge it. And they said, oh, but it's for 1 week, 7 days. So how do I use 6 gig in 7 days? That means I have to practically be downloading and watching movies on my phone. So if you don't want to do real freebies for Nigeria, then you should tell us, not that you compel us to now buy something for 1,500 for 6 gig and just in 7 days. And we do know the state of even electricity to recharge your phone. There are many people who have these phones. They don't have electricity to recharge. I know quite a number of times I want to reach my folks back home, and they say, oh, we don't have lights. That's why you couldn't reach us. We couldn't charge
but
our
I
phone.
think you are forgetting the underlying factors. Which those factors at the beginning
I'm
are
sorry,
still there
I'm
up till
sorry,
now.
Dr.
Yes.
Gabi. We'll come to you. Let's
Okay.
take the other guest first. Let's go over to Lagos Network Center. where Benga Adebayo is, who is the president of Alton, as well as Prince Azubuike, who is a telecoms finance expert. Let's first get the views of Prince Azubuike. Prince Azubuike, we understand you are a telecoms finance expert, and as Jide has indicated, and as we read from time to time, a number of these telecoms firms are declaring revenue running into hundreds of billions of naira. So, and here we are, the consumers are complaining about the high cost of data.
Once again, good morning, Nigerians. I think it is natural that consumers would complain, especially when you talk about the revenues and the profits that some operators declare. But I think we need to look beyond just that to understand why prices are where they are. I mean, as a consumer myself, I'll definitely like to pay less for my data usage. But we also have to understand that these services need to be provided in a sustainable manner. And that means that operators have to be in a position to continue to maintain the network, expand the network to reach the unserved, improve quality of service, and several other types of investments that they have to continually put into the network to give consumers a better experience. Now, but beyond that, like I said, you probably will count 1, 2, or at most 3 operators who declare the kind of revenues that, you know, consumers find eye-popping. But within the industry, there are several dozens of operators within the telecom space. So it's not just the MTN and the Glo and you know, what have you. There are several other operators. There are ISPs. There are all sorts of other businesses who are operating within that sector. Now, the question has to be asked, how are they faring? We know, for example, at least one case that's very public, the case of Nine Mobile. That was a company that, you know, ran into serious financial troubles, despite operating in a sector where people generally believe that there's a lot of money being made. So I don't think that we can, the summary of what I'm trying to say really is that I don't think that we can use the extreme success, if you want to put it that way, of one operator to then determine that, oh, the industry as a whole is making so much money and they are ripping Nigerians off and all of that. So just to put it in perspective, I'm sure that as the program goes on, we will delve a little bit more into some of these things.
Come to me. All right, thank you very much, Prince Azubuike. Just to also make you really understand what we're talking about, Prince Azubuike, we're not talking about their profit, we're talking about the high cost of data. Why Nigerians, unlike other countries where, take for instance Britain, where you pay £7 or £8, that's we're looking at, let's say 4,000 naira, and you can browse for 30 days, and that's it. But in Nigeria, you pay for, that's about 4,000 naira. You can buy data of 6 or 8 gig. We're talking about just 7 days. But then let's bring in Benga Adebayo. Benga Adebayo, give us a sense of how telecoms operators arrive at the cost of data charges. How do they put all of that together? What factors come into play when they want to arrive at the cost of data?
Thank you, and once again, good morning, Nigerians. Retail price and retail pricing generally is a factor of production. What you sell is determined by what it costs you to produce the service. And Nigeria is not an exception from all of this. I hear the public feedback and also the sentiment around the charges, the quality of service, the sustainability of the service that people subscribe to. But the fact remains that considering the state of our infrastructure as a country, considering the challenges that we have in our operating environment, the price that we charge reflects the environment where we operate. And in areas where we are comparing cost of services, I mean, you just mentioned Great Britain. I can also say to you that given the state of infrastructure here, it is cheaper to buy bandwidth from Canary Wharf in London, between Canary Wharf in London and Lagos, than it is to buy data service between Lagos and distant place like Zamfara State, because of issues of fiber availability, right-of-way issues, vandalization and damage to infrastructure, and all of those issues. The issue of our national energy crisis remains a major point of pain for the industry. And I dare say that if energy problem is taken away from our problem as a sector, a lot of other things will fall into better places. Today, sites are powered with generators. We have to load those sites with diesel every few hours of the day. Access sometimes becomes impossible and or difficult. And I hear the argument around, you know the environment where you are operating before you come into this environment. But the fact remains that government had promised providers from inception that certain grade of power will be available on the national grid. Till now, it is not there. And we have to continue to invest and invest and invest. And money doesn't solve all the problems. Even in cases where you throw money at it, getting diesel to some of the sites in distant places can be a pain. We have problems of security. We have problems of access from the local areas. We have problems of haulage and all of that. And when you add all these costs together, it impacts on the retail pricing at the end of the day. And that's where we are. So I will say that the prices that we charge, as it were, is a function of the environment where we operate, the cost of production, the challenges that we face, issues of access, issues of right-of-way, issues of power, issues of security of persons and equipment, and all of them. These are things that add up that makes up the current prices that the industry charges. And I must also say very quickly that in 18 years as an industry, I think ours is the only sector where we have not had an increase in retail pricing. Instead, prices have gone down over the years, despite the fact that cost of production continues to go up on a daily basis.
Well, Mr. Gbenga Adebayo, thank you very much there for your initial reaction. But as we indicated, our concern is not really with the profit margin that we read from time to time in the reports of the telecom firms. But take a look at this. I mean, you're saying that you have operating costs with regard to the environment in which you function, the cost of power, cost of maintaining your infrastructure, and so on and so forth. And yet, I mean, a telecom firm at the end of business last year posted revenues of over ₦1 trillion. And profit after tax, of course, also runs into several billions. Yes, you're in business to make a profit, and people are saying, your consumers are saying, that this is a ripoff, that those figures that you are declaring are off their backs, and because your tariff structure is, to them, unconscionable. We had an example of this in 2001, when the telecoms firms began their operations. If you recall, they said it was impossible to charge per second, started charging per minute. And there was a boycott of telecoms services for 1 day, sometime in 2003. And now it is data where you are having the ripoff. Why is this so?
We need to be very careful about the use of language because when you use the word rip-off, it doesn't sound nice actually. And you see, we've been talking about, the government is talking about hate speech. I think we need to be careful not to bring about hate speech against the telecom sector. And therefore, I think we should be careful about our choice of word in this regard. What I'm saying, in essence, is that yes, we have difficulty in our operating environment. Yes, we have problems in the country, as it were. In spite of that, telecom continue to be available and accessible by all persons and all people who live here. And you are asking about why some companies are making money and why doesn't that translate to cost. And like the expert has said to you, we have more than 5 companies in the industry. When I took on this role, we were 35 members. 35 operating companies. Today we are 14 in our membership. What has happened to those other companies? They could not survive the operating environment. And so when we look at the result of the overall performance of the industry, we shouldn't take one company and use that as a basis to benchmark the success of the entire industry. I say to you as we speak today, while you mentioned 5 major players, we have a number of other players that are not mentioned even in the conversation. We have smaller ISPs, we have smaller service providers. A number of these companies are struggling to make profit. They are struggling to survive. And so if you look at the result and performance of the industry, I think it's a bit unfair on the sector to look at the success of a few and they use that as a basis to determine the overall success. And again, can we wish away our national energy crisis? Can we wish away the problems? The issues are there. And we need to go back to the fundamentals. Where I come from, it used to be 4 hours drive to go to my home state from Lagos. Today, it takes me 12 to 15 hours to get there. That's an extra cost to me, for example, as a person. And if you use that as an example towards looking at what we go through in the sector, the issues the problems are the same. So while you have sites in distant places, you must power those sites. It costs more to deliver diesel to some part of the country than it is to some other part of the country. In spite of that, charges are on a non-discriminatory basis. You pay same wherever you are. Issue of our national infrastructure is still there. Right of way is a major problem. You know that the NCC intervened by way of licensing the infrastructure companies. A number of those companies could not deploy services today because of high cost of right of way. Who is charging half right of way? Government at state level, government at local government level, and even in some cases, government at federal level. All the effort that is being made by the National Communications Commission to streamline the charges of right of way is not respected by state government. And again, on the issue of quality of services, someone had said in the earlier interview that the low data in the morning, it disappears at night.
Mr. Gbenga Adebayo, sorry that we appear to have lost your audio, but just to indicate, we'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Of course, as you very well know, NTA is a public broadcaster, and we are very careful in our use of words. I use the word rip-off advisedly, and as one of the guests in our studios here has also indicated, on Tuesday this week, the Honorable Minister of Communications on Digital Economy did indicate his experience with regard to data usage. That you purchase data and the data doesn't last the period it is supposed to last, or otherwise you get all kinds of undisclosed charges that eventually wipe off the data that you have purchased. And there is no explanation for this. And in a sense, what do you call that? In any case, as we said, our business for today is not to lampoon the profit margin of the operators, just to indicate the quality of services. And as you very well know, consumers have rights as well.
All right, now let's get back to Gideojo. Gideojo, let's get your thoughts, because some of the complaints or issues that Mr. Gbenga has actually highlighted in terms of infrastructure, cost of doing business, every business in Nigeria has those challenges. If you're running a business in Nigeria, those are challenges that you have. But we're saying that, look, in terms of data services, there's something that is not right about it.
Exactly, Rhoda. You know, I understand the perspective from which both Prince and Mr. Adebayo are coming from. They are supposed to come on here to defend their constituency and promote their interest. But I represent a vast majority of Nigerians. You had a vox pop before we started this program. All the 5 or 6 people who spoke on that vox pop, which of them commended the telecommunication sector? If the Minister of a Federal Republic is complaining that he's not even exempted, then you should know that there is something that you need to do different. The point is that nobody is begrudging, you know, all these telecommunication companies of making their profit. But what we are saying is that there is no value for money. There is absolutely no value for money. So if you are charging me 6,000 for a data, I should get the value for that 6,000. Where I get less, I need to complain. And I think NCC needs to do a lot more, either in terms of enlightenment or even in terms of regulation. You cannot be, I mean, there was a time that it came to the fore that the National Assembly, people are supposed to oversight NCC and all these telecommunications, were getting freebies from this telecommunications. So they more or less kept quiet. That was exposed many years back. So the bottom line is that, can we have better service for money? Even if you are charging me more, let me get that value for the amount that you are charging me. Not that you make a promotion, at the end of the day I subscribe, there is no energy, I'm not using it, and then I mean, somebody did the mathematics. He said he recharged a 1 gig, downloaded a file of 800 MB, and the thing went off almost before. So can you say in good conscience that that's value for money? So the bottom line is that yes, like you rightly said, Rhoda, every one of us, including myself, working in Nigeria, face these operational challenges. Yes. I face it with my daily business. I'm doing a research. I need to charge my modem to be able to do my browsing and all of that. There is no energy. I have to put on my private generator. Sometimes I have to use torchlights to get on with what I have to do. The operational environment generally for business is unfriendly, and that's why the government is looking into the ease of doing business. So we all are in agreement with the fact that yes, a lot needs to be done to improve our state of infrastructure. I'm an opinion molder. I've written a number of articles to say, look, we need to solve our energy problem in this country. I mean, virtually every business will tell you, look, even for farmers will tell you the cost of transportation of their farm produce from the farm to the marketplace is very astronomical, which is why the price of goods and services, particularly food items, also increase exponentially by the time it gets to the market. That's why we talk of post-harvest losses. So virtually everybody is hampered and affected by this. But then if we continue to explain this away, oh, it's due to infrastructure, it's due to right of way, it's due to the fact that somebody is not listening, then why? I mean, you for every business you do a feasibility study before you embark on that business, and your feasibility study should have told you that, look, in this operational environment I need to redouble my effort. Many of them, when they were licensed, made commitments to finance some of these things. Yes, government has its own share of the blame, because I actually feel that government has abdicated its responsibility in terms of improving the state of infrastructure. In this country, the other day, the Honorable Minister for Works was saying that the Nigerian roads are not so bad as we are making it, which was, I consider that as a gaffe on behalf of coming from the Honorable Minister. But be that as it may, we cannot continue to explain away that even when you charge a commensurate price for your service, let people get that service.
For me, it's like saying I go to, how I say it is like I go to a filling station to get fuel. The way you're telling me that per liter is 145. Yeah. And then you adjust the machine.
And then I'm getting virtually like 130 naira while paying for 145 naira, per liter, which is the analogy we can use on this. So by and large, I think if we want to share the blame can go around everybody. Those who vandalize this mast, the mast of this telecommunication company, we know the security challenges they faced in the Northeast. And if need be, maybe they can bring about a price differentials. So the areas where they don't have these operational challenges, or where it is not as much as others, perhaps they can look at price variations and say, in Abuja you pay less because we don't face this kind of challenge, but in other places where they face it, maybe that will give some value for the money that people are paying. But to spread this thing over every of our 160 million internet subscriber, and yes, you are saying that from 35 your membership has reduced to 40. The mortality of businesses in Nigeria is generally like that. I mean, even broadcast stations, we know how many have been licensed by the National Broadcast Communication Commission, and how many are still in operation. So many are folded up. So government needs to do a lot more to improve the state of infrastructure, to bring down the price of doing business and the price of service charges and all of that, of course. But While we work at that, while we call on government to do its own part, let the telecom operators also incentivize their customer. Let them make us happy. Let them give us the value for the money that we are paying for this data.
All right, Chidojo, thanks a lot. Let's bring in again Dr. Bayero Agabi. Yeah, you wanted to provide some perspective. Yes.
For me, I'm not happy that we are still discussing these things, because these were the things discussed in 2001, in 2002, 2003, even as a journalist on the field. Then those were the issues raised. And when the GSM launched in those early days, they told us that it would take between 5 to 10 years before they will implement, per second. And one indigenous operator came with per second from day one. So what happened? See, the issue of no light, no this, no infrastructure, and all of that, like you have just said, those are known issues to us. It's like you set up a business in Lagos. Let me take Lagos for instance, and you have to submit your research work by 10 a.m. and then you get there, you are telling them that you didn't have light or there was traffic. Those are the things you should build into your business in the first place. But I'm not saying they don't have these issues, but by now they should master how to navigate all of those issues and deliver to Nigeria what is necessary and what is important. But for me, what is key here is when data is highly expensive, it goes out of the affordability of those who can innovate. It's from innovation that you get development. Okay, and WhatsApp alone was sold for 125 billion to Facebook. Our total budget this year is 19 billion. That is less half of what was half of WhatsApp. That is just an innovation that doesn't even have a physical infrastructure, that has to run on already made infrastructure. So if they're making it difficult this way, those young men and women who have the capacity to innovate, you are actually stuttering, their expertise. You are even ensuring that they are unable to innovate. By and large, making development in this country impossible in this digital environment. So this is my major, worry. I think, and then on the last end of it, my comment is, where is the Consumer Protection Agency? Because of all of this we are talking about the end user. That is the consumer. I think they are sleeping. We should have the Consumer Protection Agency ask questions. Why is this way? What is the solution to this? Why can't we find a better solution to it so that the end user can use it for what it's meant for? So that is my major concern. Really.
Well, Agabi, thanks. The Minister of Communications and Digital Economy already gave the NCC a deadline of 5 working days to get the telecoms firms to comply with the directive that he had earlier issued in October. But the CPC aspect that you just introduced is also a relevant one that we would consider. But as you would expect, we have a number of tweets that have come in from our viewers, so let's get to read from them right now.
All right, our very first one is from Ibrahim Tudu. He says, network providers have been stealing from us growing fat. From voice calls to data, they've been feeding fat. Only last week, I loaded 1.5 gig data at 1,000 naira 3 times within an hour. I was not downloading or uploading anything. Just like that, it's gone.
Now, Okpikimu Augustine tweets, data charges in Nigeria are exorbitant. Telecom operators are killing us terribly.
And Otulu Sunday says, the experience is very bad. I'll subscribe for a month, but it won't last more than 1 week. The network providers are really exploiting us. I believe government should look into our plight.
Law Alpha C tweets, now some service providers promise whopping amounts of data on recharge only for them to renege or fizzle out the data almost immediately.
And Chris Simmons says some telecommunications network have started practicing fraudulent acts. Just imagine one would subscribe and be unable to use the MB or GB due to poor network. After a few days, it is gone. They alert you that your data has been exhausted.
Mike Anyakwo, data charges by telecoms in Nigeria are exorbitant. Now, with the advent of social media, many clients of these companies are now making use of data, unlike previous years. So social media is one of the fastest means of dissemination of information. NCC should look into data charges for mutual beneficial relationship between the telecom firms and their many customers. Reduced charges will even turn out to be huge profits in the long run because it's going to be a win-win situation.
And Jones Ferrari says, data is life. I prefer to starve than to have no data. But the way these service providers are charging data nowadays, it's pathetic. NCC must do something about it.
Now, Comrade Ngala tweets, we are the best users of telecoms in Africa, but the charges are higher. Now, government should call the telecoms companies to order. I know the President Minister of Communication, Honorable Ali Patami, will handle these issues.
And Dele Jack Solomon says the problem of poor telecom service arose in the first instance because NCC failed in its duties to protect the subscribers. The NCC must see to it that the duty of their duty to consumers as primary obligation can be resolved if the NCC gives license to other companies to cover other regions.
Now, DW Nigeria, that's the Twitter handle. The telecoms firms are only here to exploit the people. Unnecessary charges on calls and data, unsolicited SMS, and poor service delivery taking days.
Well, those are the tweets that we have. Remember that you can be a part of our conversation. All you have to do is tweet at us at our Twitter handle at NTAGMN. Send in your thoughts, send in your contributions. If you've had experiences, just send it to us via Twitter handle. And also very big thank you to those of you who have been sending your tweets. Now, I'd like to go back to Gbenga Adebayo, who's in Lagos. Gbenga Adebayo, I'd like you to give us a sense of what the tariff is like now. Mind you, I made an analogy earlier. I said, if you're charging me, let's say 200 naira per fill of liter, I know where a liter of fuel should take me to. And so you charge me, I say, okay, no problem. And then you give me a 1 liter of fuel, and I can't even go half of the distance that should even take me. That's my own analogy. We're not saying that, you know, probably we understand the issue of cost servicing, but then we're saying give me value for money. So give us a sense of what the tariff is like right now and why we are having these complaints.
Thank you. I think other than the issue of why the tariff is like that, I may need to provide some explanation about how the thing works, how data works. If you subscribe to a data pack, you have a smartphone. And this smartphone, you have a few applications that are running. Some are active even when the phone is not in use. So some do what they call updates, and those updates happen in few cases on hourly basis, in a few cases on overnight basis. And so if you have certain applications that are used to and that are downloaded, you do not know when the application provider sends you an update. And all the phone does is that once it picks up a request for update and you have automatic updates activated on your phone, naturally that comes onto your phone even without you soliciting for it because you have had in it activated automatic download. That is the one major means by which you have this data depletion. The second is that the issue of when you go to sleep at night and you wake up in the morning, your data has gone. Once the phone is powered, the phone is active and it is online, tendencies are that application providers, even the phone itself, whether Android or iOS, will send you updates overnight. And unsolicited, those updates will naturally go to your phone and your phone downloads them. So it's like you park a car at night. You say this car has active battery when I'm going to sleep. And I wake up in the morning, the car doesn't start. If you have a smart car, naturally when the car is parked, the active components are drawing power. So the issue of data depletion is not necessarily a function of operators taking your money away from, because we have no reason to do that. network operators are very responsible corporate citizens, and we mind issues of corporate governance and ethics is of priority to us. And therefore, we do not take data from anyone. We do not extract data from anyone. So the issue of you buy fuel of 120 naira, 120 liters equivalent, and you get 110 liter equivalent doesn't arise at all. Now, also when you buy data pack for over 30 days, you've done two things. You bought certain gigabytes or megabytes over this period of time. So it's either that capacity is available for that period or available until when it is so consumed. So if you buy 4 gigabytes, for example, for a period of 30 days, and you download movie or applications equivalent of 4 gigabytes within 3 days, naturally you won't have it for 30 days. So the argument that I subscribe for 30 days of data and they've taken it in 2 weeks, it's not the linear argument. And so what we are saying is there is a need for further consumer education in this regard. And I think we have a duty as an industry to do so. I will take back home today as a feedback to my colleagues that we need to do a lot more about public enlightenment on actually how the smartphone works. I think that will help the issue of public perception about data depletion, about subscription for data package that is not, that people are saying they are not getting value for. The other thing I would like to talk about is the issue of actions of government and government agencies that impact on our operations. I hear my friend at the other hand who says he has a business, he has to run on generator, he has to run on this. And I also hear my friend Dr. Agabi saying that if you have a presentation submit at 10 o'clock, you need to factor in traffic and the rest of it. Yes, I hear you. But what you don't prepare for is that an agent of government will come to you in the morning and seal up your office location because you have not paid a levy that is not allowed by law to be paid. We have in some part of the country today what they call effluent discharge levy, sanitation levy, and they put all this against service provider. We are not an extractive sector. We are not an oil and gas sector. We have dispute on this with different governments across the country, different segments across the country. When those levies are not paid, you wake up in the morning, there is a chain on site, maintenance access is denied, security access is denied, and all that. What do? So while we factor in the issues of power and energy, what we do not prepare for is action of government at different state level that impacts on the smooth running of the various networks. And that has its own implication on the quality of service and end user experience. So I hear you that energy crisis is what it is. We need to be prepared for it. And we are doing our best in that regard. That's why the industry has the highest number of generating sets across the country. We have also attempted to introduce alternative energy like solar and the rest of them. What will interest you when we talk about vandalization? It sounds like we are just talking about it. The other day, somewhere up north, a solar site was attacked. The solar panels were taken away, and they were taken to the village squares by the locals to play table tennis. That's part of the impact of vandalization that you see. And that site that is being stripped of power will certainly go out of coverage, you go out of connection, it will have user experience implications and the rest of them. So when we look at the problems of the sector and the end user pricing, a lot of parameters goes into it, and we should not shy away from the fact that the operating environment is just what it is, difficult and very unpredictable.
Well, Mr. Gbenga Adebayo, thanks a lot for your perspective. We recognize that. I just wanted to also buttress part of what he said with regard to, shall we say, applications that are running in the background while you have uploaded your data otherwise. I mean, some would say backup. It depends on the settings that you have on your smartphone. If you back up over data, then of course your data gets wiped out. If you say back up over Wi-Fi, it takes quite a while until you get into a Wi-Fi environment. You don't get your data depleted. That's one leg of it. Earlier, Mr. Adebayo, you did say that it takes you double the time now to travel from Lagos to your place. We don't know whether that data also travels by road when you are going in this particular instance. But I'm just wondering, Rhoda, why is it, either Adebayo or Prince Azubuike could take this question, why is it that data consumption on smartphones would appear to be more expensive than data consumption over Wi-Fi? You have these routers that you place in your homes, XYZ, and virtually everybody can hook onto it, sometimes up to 5 or more, depending on your data plan. You run and run and run. Why is it that you have this differential in terms of consumption of data?
Thank you. I think it was a very good point that Benga made, enlightening Nigerians about what really, makes data disappear, as they call it. But your question about, between downloading on your smartphone and then over Wi-Fi, is that for most of the packages we have in our homes, for some people who are lucky, these services are delivered over fiber. Now, for services that are delivered over fiber all the way to the last mile, they tend to be cheaper, all right, compared to when you are delivering services over microwave. So these things have cost implications. And also, most of the Wi-Fi plans that we have in our homes have a certain limited bandwidth that you're allowed. So it doesn't matter how quickly or how many people are connected. The number of connections on aggregate cannot exceed the bandwidth that's been allocated to the home. And you therefore find that your experiences may not be as, especially if you have multiple connections to the device, may not be as smooth as you would have when you are using your 4G service on your phone, for example. And I like the analogy that Rhoda brought up, talking about when you buy a liter of fuel into your car or whatever you buy into it. I'll give you an example. Now, I do a lot of travel by road, and typically when I travel, I drive according to, the regulations on our roads. I try to keep within 100 kilometers per hour. Now, when I take my car from Lagos to Benin, it takes me just half the tank capacity my car to get to Benin from Lagos, driving at that speed. There was once I had an experience. I was over in my country home, and there was an emergency in Lagos, and I had to rush back. I probably shouldn't be saying this on air, but I did drive a little bit faster than I usually would. And I tell you, a full tank from Benin finished in Ijebu-Ode, coming back. This was the same distance that I did with a half tank from Lagos to Benin coming. So you find that the intensity of usage definitely has an impact on the consumption of the resources that support that usage. And that's what it does with data. So you can have a data plan that says you've got 6 or 10 gigs or whatever it is over a period of 1 month. But if your usage is intense, either by way of your active downloads, movies and music and all of that, or by way of background updates, you find that you could potentially exhaust your allowance before the end of the month comes. So I think viewers need to understand clearly that when you buy a plan that says it will last you for 30 days, that does not mean that it will automatically last you for 30 days. It is how you use it that will determine whether it does get to the end of 30 days or it finishes over a number of days.
Yeah,
Azubike, I absolutely agree with some of the thoughts that you have actually raised in terms of usage. We all know this. But the truth is, it wasn't this bad. And that's why people are complaining. Before now, you would buy 30 days and you could use for 2 weeks or 2 weeks and a half going to 3 weeks. This complaint is coming because it seems as if there's an increase. And Dr. that Ben Gadiwe was saying, oh, apps update. We know this. If you go to your settings at the end of the month, you would see the amount of data that you've used for every application, whether it's updated or not. You find out that those little updates we're talking about, they're no more than 80 MBs, 90 MBs, those updates on applications. But then the minute you play a video on Instagram or whatever you call it, 300 MB is gone, 400 MB is gone. But then I'll come back to you. Let's get the thoughts of Jide Ojo in his final thoughts on this.
So Rhoda, I don't just, I really need to ask the question. Prince Azubike was talking about driving the car. We're not talking about automobiles here. But he didn't tell us the kind of car he was driving, because the fuel consumption is not the same. So, Azubike, thank you very much for what you said. But I recall over 25 years ago, the same route from Lagos to Benin, If I used, I mentioned the name now because the car is no longer available. You know, Lorette, how about those big ones then? At least 2 liters or 2.4 liters. Half a tank would take me from Benin. By the time I'm at UBTH, it would be half a tank. I could take it back. But if I used a Peugeot 504, the tank is almost empty.
All right, Chinedu, let's get your closing thoughts on this. The minister has given a deadline. How possible is this? How feasible do you see this deadline being met by telecommunications companies? Would it be effective? Are we likely to see any changes?
We wish to see changes, and I believe the Honorable Minister should be taken very seriously on this. He gave the charge in October. Obviously, it was not implemented. He has reminded them, giving them 5 working days to look into it. And I think it's just in the enlightened best interest of this telecommunication to bring down the price and give us better service for money. Somebody made that analogy earlier in one of the tweets, that it's a win-win situation when you encourage more people to be on the networks. You are providing this thing. Okay, it's like you have a warehouse that is full of goods. You say, oh, I have to charge X amount. Meanwhile, if you don't consume, it goes to waste. You are using the same infrastructure to produce. If you are producing 1 million gigabyte or gigabyte of product and nobody is buying, or less people is buying, you cannot continue to produce at that level. But if you bring in more people, you are likely going to make, even if your profit level per user is less, but given the number of people you can bring on board, you can incentivize. I think it will be in the best interest of the service provider to do that. So I wish the Honorable Minister will be taken very seriously. I wish NCC were here to also tell us whether they are working towards it and what likely changes we are likely going to see. And the Consumer Protection Council that Dr. Agabi talked about, I wish they can tell us what they are doing, how they are collaborating with NCC to protect with the customers, because at the end of the day, I mean, not everybody is on minimum wage of federal government. I have not received any minimum wage. So at least for those of us who are working for ourselves, let's have some little disposable income after we've done our work, because our clients are also not willing to pay more for the service. So generally speaking, I wish the government will improve the infrastructure. Seriously speaking, let's bring down the cost of doing business in Nigeria, so that not only the telecommunication sector, but generally businesses can move and we can have more thriving businesses that will not only break even but be able to make profit and hire more people, take more people out of unemployment market.
I just want to, Dr. Agabi, we'll get you in. Jide Ojo is talking about minimum wage. Is both ties more than the cost?
You don't know if I borrowed it.
Dr. Agabi, let's get your closing thoughts.
Okay. My worry is that, first, the minister can be taken very seriously, but it cannot be done by fiat or giving them ultimatum. It cannot be done, because it has to be done, you know, using a roundtable conversation with the operators and then the NCC and then the minister himself, because I know the NCC is doing quite a lot of things in this area. The reason you can't do with ultimatum is that it requires infrastructural deficiency. As we speak, as at yesterday, the NCC said Nigeria requires a minimum of 80,000 base stations to have an efficient coverage of Nigeria. That will reduce, you know, this up or down, you know, connectivity fluctuations and all of that. But my major concern is the impact that it can have on our economy. Because if we do not have good internet connectivity, I can tell you that all of these hubs and the rest of things we are talking about may just be in a sluggish manner, and the product at the end of it all might just be a kind of wishy-washy product. So I think government should ensure to work with the private sector, the operators and the NCC and the minister to ensure that we have a very good working environment.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Bayero Agabi. Gbenga Adebayo, let's get your closing thoughts. And then in some climes, I know when you buy data, you could get free calls. Can't that even be possible? Like, I buy data of, let's say, 3,000 naira. That's about maybe 6.5 gig. I should be able to get some free calls.
I heard also in the intervention by the barrister there that he bought the data and they promised him that he can get double, but he has to use it within a period of time. So I think that's also already available. However, I'd like to say that the reason why we are in business is because of the public, as the consumer. So, and therefore, for us, consumer interest and retail pricing is an issue that is very important to us as an industry. And we will continue to look at that. The Honorable Minister has spoken. We are working and we will continue to work along with the regulator to arrive at what is best for everyone, what is in the best interest of both the industry and the country. One important point I will, however, like to emphasize is about the independence of our regulator. The success that the industry has made over the years is a function of the independence and the autonomy that the industry regulator has enjoyed. And I think we must not compromise that. So while we talk about issue of price review, price reduction, quality of services, we must be mindful that we have a regulator who is supposed to be independent under the law, under the act, and their autonomy must be protected for us to continue to have a thriving industry. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gbenga Adebayo, thank you very much. I mean, one of the points you made there, it's to be noted with regard to allowing the regulator to continue to maintain independence, but we are also familiar with the phenomenon of regulatory capture.
Absolutely, yes.
Familiar with the phenomenon of regulatory capture, because I mean, that's what has triggered all of this, as we said, is the experience of the consumers of your products. What you have said, all of that is noted, but that in the event that the regulator appears not to be doing his job, then of course it gets to be prompted to do that, and that's why I'm referring to regulatory capture. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case in this particular instance.
All right, yes, I hear you, and that's well noted. But it is important that as stakeholders, we must identify that we all work together for the common good of the industry and in the best interest of the consumers. And therefore, I'm very particular that we're able to maintain and sustain the independence of the regulator, because the success we have recorded, again, I say with emphasis, is in part due to the independence that our regulator has experienced over the years.
Okay, thanks a lot. Prince Azubuike, your closing thoughts. Don't tell us the car you drove, because we have closed that chapter. But your closing thoughts, what do we need to do?
Use the car. All right, so by way of closing, I'd just like to sort of underscore the importance of what Gbenga has said regarding the independence of the regulator. I know the Honorable Minister means well. I also know that Nigerians have a legitimate, and I emphasize that word, legitimate desire to see prices come down. I am a consumer, so I would also like to pay less for what I currently use. The only thing we are arguing is that it has to be done in an orderly fashion. It won't be the first time that there have been agitations for prices to come down in this market. I remember a few years ago when there was a lot of complaints about interconnect rates. Eventually, what the NCC did was to commission a cost study, brought in consultants with operators coming together, and an orderly, gradual reduction of interconnect rates was, put into the system, and that solved it. So even with this one, I think what would be best would be to allow the regulator, because the regulator has got not just the competence and the experience, but also has got the understanding of how the industry operates, both within this jurisdiction and in other places. So, and these are all the things that we bring together in fashioning out a model that will ensure that prices come down in a sustainable manner so that Nigerians get what they want and operators are able to continue to provide quality services and are able also to reach those who are yet to be reached.
All right, thank you very much, Prince Azubike. Let's quickly take our next set of tweets from our viewers watching and, of course, sending in their tweets via Twitter handle at NTAGMN. Adejimo Paul says, my experience has been terrible. The network is very bad, especially when it comes to using my data bundle to browse. I hardly connect to the internet with it.
All right, this is from Innocent Yawa James. Telecom companies always hide under the guise of infrastructural deficit in the country as a reason for the high cost of data. This is not what is obtainable in other countries. Maybe we need more companies so as to have competition.
And this one is from Romanus Abife. He says, I'm not enjoying the value of my money as a result of the poor services and data charges by telecoms provider. It is very high compared to the number of internet users in Nigeria.
Nasir Mohammed, that's telecom operators should do like telecom companies abroad. It's unlimited everywhere abroad.
And Ayotunde Odukun says, while I agree with the fact that telecoms are taking a lot from us, note that expiration date is different from usage. Analogy, if you buy, okay, and then, all right, you still can finish whatever you bought just before the month ends. Thank you very much, Ayotunde, and thank you to all of you for sending in your tweets. And on that note, we want to thank all of our guests who have joined us this morning. From Lagos, we had Prince Azubike, a telecoms and finance expert. Prince Azubike, we thank you for your thoughts and time this morning. And also a very big thank you to the Chairman, Association of Licensed Telecoms Operators of Nigeria, Alton Benga Adebayo. Thank you very much for coming. And also we have with us a regular on Good Morning Nigeria, Jide Ojo, a public affairs analyst. Jide, it's always a pleasure to have you here with us. And finally, Dr. Bayero Agabi is the president of the Center for Cyber Awareness and Development and vice president, Nigeria Internet Group. Thank you so much for coming this morning.
Thank you very much.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we have some law students from the Faculty of Law of the University of Benin who'll be joining us on Students and Nation Building. Stay with us.
All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, law students from the Faculty of Law at the University of Benin in Abuja, and they have already visited the National Assembly to watch plenary proceedings in furtherance of their academic development. Now, we have with us two of those students, and they'll be telling us their experience and the prospective contribution of the young persons to national development. Rhoda?
All right, we have with us a law student, that's Peter Erekose. Peter Erekose, thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Good morning, Rhoda. Good morning.
We have Jane Azagba, and she's also from the Faculty of Law, University of Benin. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right, Jane, by the way, is president of the Law Students Association, 400 level, and so on the basis of seniority, we'll ask you the first question.
Okay, thank you, sir.
What was your experience like watching the plenary at the National Assembly?
Okay, good morning. Good morning, Nigerians. Watching plenary at National Assembly was an experience of a lifetime, a dream come true. We, students from Faculty of Law, always learned about legislative process, money bills, and everything. But it's one thing to learn in theory, and it's another thing, a big deal to see it happen live. So watching plenary was a big deal for every one of us, and we looked forward to attending that plenary session. It widened our horizon and made us know that there's more to this than just learning in theory, but seeing, and that you can be part of the government, you can make change wherever you are. And it doesn't really matter if you are the president. You don't have to be the president to make change. You start from where you are, and then you move forward. Because change, as the president says, begins with us.
All right, Peter Erekose, what was your experience like?
Well, it's a good thing to be here live on African biggest television network. Our experience here at the National Assembly was worth it. You know, it was Professor Watley who had spent 30-odd years in education that said that education did not just end within the 4 walls of the university. You must go out and interact with the society or your environment. Our coming here, courtesy the Vice Chancellor of the University of Benin, Professor F.F. Onuesi, was just to broaden our horizon on the educational sector. We visited numerous arms of government. Yesterday we were at the Supreme Court. Basically on Monday we were with the DPO of Super Police Station. On Tuesday we went to the National Assembly, where we had the privilege of watching plenary about the House of Senate and the House of Representatives. It was worth it because as law students who are aspiring to become lawyers, we must know the rudiments of the law. So we had a worthwhile experience. Thank you very much.
Okay, I mean, still on this, you would have seen the exposition of aspects of constitutional law and perhaps admin law, depending on what you saw. When you were at the Supreme Court, what feeling did you get? Because that's another arm of government now.
So the feeling we got at the Supreme Court is ecstasy, pure ecstasy. We felt closer to the future because a lot of us have dreams and aspirations, and in as much as we know that we start from where we are, being there opened our minds to the possibility of working there and making actual changes. The Supreme Court is the home of justice. So being at the Supreme Court just made us feel closer at the foot of justice. We saw the offices of various judges of the Supreme Court, and we felt really part of the nation-building process.
All right, so I was just wondering, Rhoda, so at some point, would you look forward to being referred to as Azagba JSC?
By the grace of God, yes.
That's the justice of the Supreme Court now.
Yes.
All right, Peter Arokosa, tell us, being there, like just as she has said, you know, she felt like, you know, a lot of she feels like a lot of changes should be made, and of course she sees your crop of, you know, lawyers as people who can bring about that change. What role do you think that youths have to play, especially your, you know, your sector in terms of nation building?
Yes, it's a very good thing to be here on national TV. We basically want to pass a message to Nigerian youths. The youths of the nation, according to former British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli, the youths of the nation are a trustee of posterity. If the youths are productive, remove their hands from crime, we have a better nation, because governance is all about us. And it's a good thing that the youths are taking over now. From where I come from, my constituency, Igbanki West local government, Northern local government area of Edo State, Igbanki West, the councillor, the honorable councillor representing us, is barely 27. Now we have young senators. Prior to this very time, we were thinking that to become a senator, you have to be a former governor, former minister, and the rest. You can see we have young senator Elisha Abo and the rest of them. Young Nigerians are taking over. So this is a call to all Nigerians to join hands together to build this nation. The youth should remove their hand from thuggery and political whatever, because it is now the time of the youth to take over the nation.
All right, so what will happen to the elders when the youths take over the nation?
The elders of the nation should start bringing up and mentoring youths.
All right, let's get your, so far, what do you think is the efficacy of the judiciary in terms of entrenching democracy?
Okay, the judiciary is one important arm of government, aspect of government, and then we know that the judiciary upholds and interprets the law made by the legislature and enforced by the executive. Without the judiciary being the hope of the common man, then the common man is hopeless, actually. So while interpreting the law, the judiciary sees to it that the rule of law is properly entrenched and brought to the book. So it's not just about writing it or making noise about it, but the judiciary comes close to each individual member of society and say, this is the law, you have to uphold the law without fear or favor. That's why you see the symbol of justice, like the Justicia, her eyes are covered and she has a scale. So she doesn't see the person involved. She just meets out justice as the law stipulates.
What kind of message will you be taking back to your colleagues? Because I believe that not all students in the law faculty at the University of Benin are on this excursion. What will be the most important message you're taking back to your colleagues?
Thank you, sir. As president of the Law Students Association, University of Benin, I'm known for the expression that you don't need to have a portfolio to be a leader. Leadership starts from where you are. So that little niche you have, make space for yourself, make the difference there, so that when it comes to the big scheme of things, you already have experience from the little one you have. In Benin City, Edo State, that's University of Benin, we have a lot of students who are doing things from where they are, from the scratch, little by little, for environment, photography, catering, and the like. So you don't have to come. While it's important to be, for example, the president, as he said, the justice of the Supreme Court, we can start from where we are and crawl inch by inch, little by little, to where we're going to. There's something our lecturers always say: you don't need to get there to do it. You can start from where you are and make the difference, because as the president said, and I will always reiterate, the change begins with us Nigerians.
All right, so finally, right now, what's your opinion of the relationship between the legislature, being a lawyer, and the executive arm of government?
Okay, basically the legislature makes the law and then the executive enforces the law. Generally, there's been tension between the executive and the legislature because there is a stance of combat. Even legislative houses and executive in small places or parastatals like faculty associations or university associations, they always have this stance of combat. But the thing is, when we work together, we have greater good. For example, when you talk about legislative oversight, the legislature does not really come to combat with you or fight with you. They just want to put heads together, and when you are wrong, you are called to order. It doesn't mean that they have negative intentions towards the executive. They are just trying to work together to see to it that the nation moves forward. So to answer your question, the executive and the legislature, they have a lot of prospect, they have promise, but when there's a stance of combat, we'll not get there. So we should all work together, create a synergy that will take Nigeria forward.
All right, Jane, thanks a lot. Peter, what feeling did you get watching the National Assembly in plenary? What feeling came to you? The way you speak, do I have a sense that one day, you'll like to be called honorable, perhaps distinguished senator?
With all pleasure, sir.
All right.
Well, watching the plenary at the National Assembly, most especially that of the Senate, I felt like one of them, because the Senate, it was so welcoming. They were so unified. And I want to commend the present sets of the National Assembly. It is not compulsory that the legislature must always have friction with the executive. No. Because if they do continuously, it's the populace that will suffer. If the National Assembly or the legislature is working hand in hand with the executive, it makes development to come faster.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much, Peter Erekosa. Thank you for coming on the program this morning. It's indeed been our pleasure to have you join us speaking on nation building. Of course, your experience being in Abuja and the National Assembly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And also a very big thank you to Jane Asagba, President of Law Students Association of the University of Benin. Thank you.
I also hope that they saw that you don't pick naira or dollars on the streets of Abuja as the impression sometimes is created out there. They say, Ghana must go everywhere you go. If you go Abuja, everywhere is clean.
If you go to National Assembly, Ghana must go. Of course, you didn't see anything.
All right, so we wish you Johnny Evans is back to Benin. All right, so that does it for our second conversation.